Eagles Nation. The Philadelphia Eagles didn't just wrap up their 2026 NFL draft and call it a day. What's happening right now behind the scenes might be just as important as the picks themselves, and if you're really paying attention, you can see a very clear pattern forming in how this roster is being built, because as soon as the draft ended, the front office immediately shifted focus to undrafted free agents, and this is where things get really interesting. One of the most fascinating additions is Joshua Wiru, an edge rusher coming through the international pathway program out of Kenya. At 6'4", 244 pounds, he brings elite athletic traits and a rugby background, which immediately draws comparisons to the developmental path of Jordan Mailata. The key difference here is positional. Mailata was molded into an offensive tackle, while Wiru is being developed on the defensive edge. What stands out is not just his physical tools, but the fact that he's already shown fluidity and explosiveness in athletic testing environments. He's still raw, hasn't played in pads yet, but unlike some international prospects, he does come from a contact sport background. And because of the NFL's roster rules, the Eagles can develop players like him without using a standard roster spot, giving them time to truly invest in his upside. Then there's Rocco Underwood, a long snapper out of Florida, and this might seem like a small detail, but it's actually pretty significant. The Eagles didn't have a long snapper on the roster heading into the draft, so this isn't just a camp body. There's a legitimate opportunity here. Underwood played 50 career games in college, and at 6'3", 231 pounds, he has the size and experience you want at that position. It's one of those under-the-radar moves that could quietly solve a very real need. Now, the name that really jumps out, the one that makes you stop and think, how did this guy not get drafted? And I was Deontay Lawson out of Alabama. This is a linebacker with serious pedigree, former 5-star recruit, 2-time team captain in the SEC, and a player who put up 89 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 4 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries last season. He's nearly 6'3", around 224 pounds, with strong instincts against the run and solid ability in coverage. There were even comparisons at one point to Reuben Foster during his college days. The biggest concern has been durability, and that likely played a role in him slipping out of the draft. But from a talent standpoint, this is exactly the type of player Howie Roseman loves to take chances on. High pedigree, proven production, and something to prove. He could very well carve out a role on special teams and develop into something more. Another intriguing addition is tight end Daquan Wright. At just under 6'4" and 246 pounds, he brings a blend of size, athleticism, and production that's hard to ignore. He recorded 39 catches for 635 yards and 5 touchdowns, averaging an impressive 16.3 yards per reception, an unusually high number for a tight end. He's a yards after catch threat, physical with the ball in his hands, and comes from an offensive system where he was heavily involved. There are areas to refine, especially route running, but the upside is clearly there. And even though the Eagles already invested in the position during the draft, Wright adds competition and depth that could make things very interesting in camp. In the secondary, the Eagles are taking multiple swings. Tucker Large, a safety out of Washington State, put up 71 tackles and 8 pass breakups last season, along with a strong Pro Football Focus grade of 81.4. He's active, willing to come up and make plays near the line of scrimmage, and shows good awareness in coverage. Then you have Maximus Pulley from Wofford, whose production really jumps off the page. 85 tackles, 10 pass breakups, and 5 interceptions. That kind of ball production, even at a smaller school, is hard to ignore. Add Kapina Gushikin into the mix, another safety with solid experience and versatility, and suddenly you see a clear effort to address depth and competition at that position. And it's not just skill players. Look at the trenches. Jaden Roberts, a massive guard out of Alabama at over 6'5" and 345 pounds, brings experience with 37 games played and 25 starts. He's shown strong pass blocking ability, allowing just 1 sack last season, although his run blocking still needs consistency. Still, the size, the program he comes from, and the technical foundation make him a very intriguing developmental piece. When you step back and look at all of this together, you start to see the strategy. This isn't random. This is calculated. High upside athletes, proven college production, pedigree from major programs, and strategic depth at positions that need competition. And with rookie minicamp right around the corner, these names aren't just going to sit in the background. Some of them are going to push for real roles. So now the question becomes pretty simple, and it's the one that really matters to you watching this right now. Out of all these undrafted signings, which player do you think has the best chance to actually make the roster and surprise everyone this season? And when you really start connecting the dots here, it becomes even clearer that the Philadelphia Eagles are not just filling out a 90-man roster, they're creating internal competition across multiple layers of the team. And that's where things can get very real, very fast once rookie minicamp begins. Take a closer look at the linebacker situation again. Deontay Lawson isn't walking into a guaranteed role, but he's stepping into a room where opportunity exists, especially on special teams. The coaching staff values intelligence, discipline, and effort at that position, and Lawson checks all those boxes. If he stays healthy, and that's the key, he has a legitimate shot to not only stick around, but to force the staff into some tough decisions when trimming down the roster. That's the kind of pressure you want from an undrafted player. Now shift to the tight end room. Daquan Wright enters a situation where he's not expected to be the guy right away, but his skill set gives him a real chance to stand out. That yards after catch ability, combined with his physicality, can translate quickly if he adapts to the speed of the NFL. And here's where it gets interesting. When you already have established names and recent draft investments at the position, a player like Wright has nothing to lose. He can play freely, aggressively, and sometimes that's exactly what allows a player to break through. In the secondary, the volume of additions tells you everything you need to know. This is a position group that the front office openly acknowledged still needs work. By bringing in Tucker Large, Maximus Pulley, and Kapina Gushaikin, they're essentially creating a competition lab. Different backgrounds, different strengths, but all with something to prove. Large brings consistency and solid grading, Pulley brings ball production, and Gushaikin brings versatility and experience from multiple programs. The odds say not all of them will make it, but the odds also say at least one could emerge if they flash on special teams or show rapid development in camp. And don't overlook the offensive line, because history tells us that's where this organization thrives. Jaden Roberts might not be a finished product, but players with his size and experience coming out of a program like Alabama are always worth watching. The Eagles have built a reputation for developing linemen, and if Roberts responds well to coaching, improves his run blocking, and uses that size more consistently, he could absolutely work his way into a backup role, or at least secure a spot on the practice squad. Then there's the wildcard factor, the international players like Joshua Wiru. These are long-term investments. You're not expecting immediate returns, but the physical traits are undeniable. And we've already seen this organization successfully take that kind of raw talent and turn it into something real. If Wiru shows even flashes of understanding the game at a deeper level, his development timeline could become one of the more intriguing storylines to follow over the next year or two. What makes all of this even more compelling is how it reflects the mindset of the front office. This is a team that refuses to rely solely on draft picks or big-name signings. They're constantly searching for value, constantly looking for the next player who slipped through the crack. And every year, without fail, someone from this group finds a way to stick. Someone forces their way into the conversation. Someone becomes a name nobody expected. So as training camp approaches, this isn't just about evaluating talent. It's about watching who adapts the fastest, who handles the pressure, who stands out when the pads come on. Because that's when the real separation begins. And if you've been following this team long enough, you already know some of the most interesting stories don't come from the first round. They come from right here. And even beyond the names we've already talked about, what really separates this phase of the offseason is how quickly narratives can change once these players actually hit the field. Because right now, everything is projection, traits, college production, physical measurements. But as soon as rookie minicamp opens, it becomes about execution, consistency, and how fast each player can absorb an NFL system. For someone like Joshua Wiru, the adjustment is going to be massive. Learning the fundamentals of football at the highest level isn't something that happens overnight. Hand placement, leverage, reading offensive schemes. These are things most players have been developing for years. But what gives him a real chance is the infrastructure around him. The Philadelphia Eagles have shown patience with developmental prospects before. And if he responds well to coaching, even small improvements early on could signal that he's worth investing in long term. At the same time, players like Rocco Underwood are in a completely different situation. situation. There's no long-term project label here. His role is very specific, very technical, and very immediate. Either he proves he can deliver consistent, accurate snaps under pressure, or the team looks elsewhere. That's the reality of specialist positions in the NFL. There's very little margin for error, but also a clear path to securing a job if you perform. Then you circle back to the broader picture, and this is where it all ties together. The Eagles aren't just hoping to find one hidden gem, they're increasing their odds by bringing in a wide range of profiles. High upside athletes, experienced college starters, productive small school players, and international prospects. It's a volume strategy, but it's also a targeted one. Every signing fills a purpose, whether it's depth, competition, or long-term development. And as these competitions unfold, certain battles are going to become must-watch situations. Linebacker depth, tight end rotation, secondary roles, interior offensive line backups. These aren't just roster spots, they're opportunities for someone to completely change their career trajectory in a matter of weeks. One strong preseason performance, one standout practice stretch, and suddenly a player goes from undrafted to indispensable. That's why this stage matters more than people realize. This is where the foundation of the back end of the roster is built. This is where special teams units are shaped. This is where coaching staffs find players they can trust when injuries hit during the season. And if you're a fan paying close attention, this is where you get your first look at the next surprise name everyone will be talking about in a few months. Because it always happens. Every year there's that one player nobody expected until they forced everyone to notice. And the deeper you go into this process, the more you realize that what separates the players who stick from the ones who fade out isn't just talent. It's how quickly they can translate everything into real football situations when the intensity rises. Because once the Eagles move from rookie minicamp into full team activities, the environment changes completely. Now these undrafted guys aren't just competing among themselves. They're lining up against established NFL players. That's where the real evaluation begins. Can a player like Daquan Wright create separation against faster, stronger defenders? Can Tucker Large read plays quickly enough when the speed of the game increases? Can Jaden Roberts hold his ground against defensive linemen who are not just big, but technically refined? That's the filter, and it's a tough one. For someone like Deontay Lawson, this phase might actually work in his favor. His instincts and football IQ are already considered strengths, and those traits tend to show up even more when the game speeds up. If he can prove he belongs physically and stay healthy, he has a real shot to climb the depth chart faster than people expect. Coaches trust players who are in the right place at the right time, and Lawson has built his game around exactly that. Meanwhile, in the secondary, this is where versatility becomes crucial. Players like Maximus Pulley and Kapina Gushikin aren't just fighting for one role. They're fighting to prove they can do multiple things: special teams coverage, sub packages, rotational snaps. If you can contribute in more than one area, your value increases immediately. And for undrafted players, that flexibility can be the difference between making the roster and being cut. And let's be honest, this is where pressure starts to build. Every rep matters. Every mistake is noticed. There are no guarantees, no safety nets. But at the same time, this is also where opportunities appear. Injuries happen, rotations shift, coaches experiment, and when that window opens, even for a moment, the players who are ready take advantage of it. That's why the Eagles approach this the way they do. It's not just about finding talent, it's about creating